Hi guys, welcome to your channel Digital Empaths, and I'm your host Sushant Tijmani. So today we are going to continue on our last week conversation around how to improve the adoption of your dashboards and scorecards. And this is a part 4 of this series. If you haven't watched our last 3 episodes, I would highly urge you to go to our channel Digital Empaths and watch the first 3 parts, because that will give you a better context on what problem we are trying to solve and what are the different techniques we have discussed in the previous episodes, along with our measurement framework, what are the different adoption techniques you can follow. In our today's episode, which is a part 4 of this series, we're going to talk about that once you have put a proper measurement framework in place and you have worked with your business team, your BI and analytics team, and put together a kind of a closed feedback loop system so that you have a way to gauge how your different adoption initiatives are actually working. So, in our today's episode, I'm going to share with you certain very interesting approaches around that, where to start. That once you have an adoption plan in place, you have a measurement framework in place, which teams or what type of problem we should prioritize first, and what kind of things we can put lower in the priority list. Okay, so again, this is my personal opinion, so definitely there is a bias here. It's just based on the last 20 years of experience in the industry, so I'm always open to hear your constructive feedback. So if you have any suggestions, any corrections to make, please go to the on our channel and post your comments below this video. Okay, so let's talk about that, how to go about executing your adoption plan. So the number one lesson that I've learned in the industry is that whenever you roll out any new BI platform in the company, your major users are your middle management team. Okay, if you are a large organization, have hundreds and thousands of people in your workforce, the big chunk of your workforce is that middle management. Okay, your managers, senior managers, your directors, your senior directors. Okay, and that particular belt of resources gives you the reach, the kind of impact that you want to see coming out of your deployment of this new BI platform comes from this batch of people. In terms of the visibility, this is the team that gives you that visibility. And this team also plays a very critical role in influencing whether to renew the contract next year or not. So instead of spending too much time on the C level or spending too much time at the power users level, it's better you spend a decent percentage of your time improving the data literacy as well as the adoption in this particular layer. Okay. Now, this particular layer comprises of people which are more operational, okay, and they have challenges almost every day. They have pressure to meet the targets on a monthly, quarterly basis. They also have to go into a lot of weekly and fortnightly review meetings with their superiors, and they also need to do lot of data extraction from different sources, and the amount of time these people have to invest in getting access to the real insight is also significantly very higher. And based on my experience working with some of the large CPG, FMCG, even the retail players, is that more than 55 to 57% of the time this particular layer of people spend in getting access to the insights. That's a ridiculous amount of time. Okay, now these are the people who are on the front line. These are the people who are supposed to do lot of critical activities during the day, and they don't have time to look at the future. For them, everything revolves around what happened in the yesterday or in the last week, what happened today, and how can I make tomorrow better. Okay, so it's very, very important that whenever you are focusing on putting an adoption plan, start targeting these people first and try to understand that the storyline that you have put in place in the form of a dashboards and scorecards for these individuals, how well that storyline is connecting with their persona, connecting with their day-to-day challenges, their decision-making process, and the kind of actions they are supposed to take after consuming your story. Okay? And some of the common concerns you will hear from these people is that, number one, that I'm quite habitual, I'm quite used to our incumbent BI platform. That could be Excel, or it could be the traditional platforms like your Cognos or Business Objects. I'm quite used to it because they give me the canned reports, and these reports comes from our BI and analytics team, and I'm quite used to it for many years. And now suddenly you have given me a new tool to play with. I've not been given a proper training. I've not been given a proper hand holding that how to get the value out of this new BI tool. I agree, it's pretty easy. I can drag and drop, I can slice and dice, I can play with different charts. But you know what? I'm quite habitual to my incumbent platform. What I need right now is someone who can handhold me. And by the way, I don't have time to sit in too many training sessions. I don't want to spend hours and hours every week to learn the new BI platform because I've been used to consuming curated insights, those canned reports, okay, with a defined number of dimensions. Everything is very tabulated, similar to your pivot tables kind of a thing. And now suddenly I'm getting a very configurable environment. It's too much for me to digest. Okay, so that's the first fundamental problem that often comes. Number two problem that we need to tackle as a part of our adoption strategy is that how to make our storyline, which we have put together in these new BI platforms, more relevant to them. See, I remember I told you that these people are very operational, and operational people wants to fix the problem in near real time, so that when they have their weekly review meeting next week on Monday or Tuesday, they know what actions we took, and they should be able to demonstrate to the superior that what was an impact of that. And even if certain problems were not sorted out in the previous week, they should know what were the root causes behind it. So the causality is very, very important for these people to know. Okay, more than predictions and prescriptions, for these people, more important thing is those anomalies, whether these are your point anomalies or your contextual anomalies, and even some of the basic correlations between the different variables, that which variable impacts which variable, proper causality if you can derive based on some kind of a statistical modeling. That's fantastic for these particular people. Okay, so wherever you can educate these people about the causality, the anomalies, can give them the perspective, it makes their life really, really easier. Remember, they have to take immediate actions. They want faster decision making, these people. Okay, they don't have time to wait for a week or 2 weeks, because by that time the damage has already happened. Okay. Number three is that oftentimes comes from these people is that whatever story you are giving to me, I should be able to take some faster actions based on that. There should be an actionability associated to it. Don't just give me something which is good to know, because that good to know information is already available through multiple sources. I can get that transactional data directly from the SAP reporting which is coming to me. I can get that data from my enterprise data warehouse based reporting that is coming to me. I can also get the data from other sources. I get a lot of emails and the health report cards in my mailbox every week. There are multiple avenues to get that. So if I'm adopting a new BI ecosystem, I want that ecosystem to deliver me something which is not coming from the incumbent sources. So that gap is something that needs to be fulfilled. And that gap is what's going to make it actionable. And what is the definition of actionability? Again, it's very subjective depending on the persona that you have in the organization. Okay, so actionability for an operational person is something which he can quickly optimize, whether it's optimization in terms of the marketing spend, optimization of the marketing messaging, optimization of your promotional messaging on the website, the different thresholds that you define for the different types of promotions, the content on the website, whether it is your product related content or it's just your normal content on the website. It could be talking to the suppliers, the procurement people, talking to the people in the plant. Okay, so whatever that motivates these people to go and coordinate with other people, so that the damage which has already happened in the yesterday or in the last 2 days or 3 days can be avoided in the coming day or in the next 2-3 days. Okay, so very, very important. So these people want almost near real-time visibility. So if you can deliver a low latency environment to these people, that's fantastic. That's what will bring stickiness. That's what will make these people more engaged to the new storyline that you put in place. Okay, that's very important. So now let's talk about the next cohort of people. Okay, the first cohort we talked about your middle management people, okay? Now the next cohort comes from your people who are your power users as well as the people in the top management, okay? So we are not talking about the C level right now, we're talking about your VPs, your senior vice presidents, okay, maybe your head of departments, as well as the people who are the third cohort is your power users. So now power users, not every organization has an army of power users, okay? These are the people who are always hungry. They want a lot of power in their hand because they are very tech savvy. They know how to use SQL. They know how to use different kind of statistical packages like R and Python. They may not be your resident expert data scientist, but they know how to play with these tools, okay? And they also are very curious to learn new tools and capabilities, okay? They are very passionate, okay? Ultimately, they want to add into their resume also. But plus, more than that, they want to learn new tools and techniques. That's very motivating to them, these power users. But remember, they are also the major detractors for you also. Because these people feel kind of intimidated whenever the new BI ecosystem comes into picture, because when the things started becoming too oversimplified, when you start delivering a lot of causality and predictions and forecasting within your existing dashboards, now that becomes a little bit challenging for the existing power users that, oh my God, wait a second, I am the very valuable human capital in the organization. How am I being leveraged as a part of this new storyline? See, remember one thing which I've learned in the last 5 to 6 years is that a lot of large enterprises are expecting their internal human capital to be leveraged as a part of the new BI ecosystem deployment. Okay, whether you are setting up a data infrastructure on the cloud, on Azure, AWS, or GCP, or you are investing in a self-service BI platform, or maybe you're going for an augmented analytics platform. Doesn't matter, whichever area you go to, you need to leverage the best out of your internal human capital. Most of the enterprises these days, they are gradually moving away from the SaaS-based offerings because people like to keep data within their cloud. Okay, they don't want to go for too many IP-based solutions, okay, because that raises the barrier of entry, especially when you are dealing with very sensitive data coming from your enterprise data warehouse, your SAP system, your transportation system, your warehousing management system, your ERP platforms, okay. So up till last 2 decades, if you look at it, a lot of focus was always around top of the funnel, the marketing related data, okay? There, you are not dealing with too much PII information, but the moment you start going down into the funnel, the customer related data, the process related data, your supply chain related data, your finance data, suddenly the barrier of entry rises. Your legal team, your data security team, your IT team, everyone comes as in a group and try to avoid, okay, wait a second. We don't want to go for any IP-based solution, okay? We don't want to invest in a SaaS, okay? Everything has to be deployed within my cloud. No data will go outside the cloud, okay? And things has to be remain within the boundary. They have to respect the GDPR as well as the California data protection law. So the things are becoming very strict nowadays. So it's very important that when you're dealing with the power users, you need to build that connection with these people because that's very, very important because these people are also your major influencers and also your major detractors. Remember, whenever the C-level executive wants any deep dive insights, any diagnostic insights, whom he approach first? Your power users, okay? And if the power users goes and bitch about your new BI platform or your new investment or your new storyline, it creates perception. And you don't want that perception to be negative. So it's very important that these power users have to be handled very, very smartly and very diplomatically. And you need to understand their life, the kind of challenges they go through, because these people are always deep inside the data. They have to solve some really crucial problems and make the middle management as well as the top management empowered with a high quality diagnostic as well as the forward-looking insights. So if you are giving them any story to them, make sure don't give them too much curated insights. Give them weapons and ammunition so that they can derive their own story. Okay? Don't try to teach these people the canned information or the canned storyline. Give them the right weapons. Let them construct their own story. Okay? Empower them. If you have built some models, educate them that how to use these inference versions of this model. You know, we don't need to teach them everything under the hood. Okay, this is my trained model scripts and everything. Even if you can give them access to your inferences, educate them what assumptions you have taken, how your tabular data model behind the scene is working, how the data is getting mined, what are the business rules you have applied on it, how these different calculated metrics you have calculated, what is the numerator, what is the denominator, why you chose this. Whatever way you can educate these people behind the scene, it makes their life easier and also builds credibility. That's very, very critical when you're dealing with the power users cohort. Okay, so remember, giving them right ammunition so that they can derive or construct their own story rather than giving them a canned story. Okay. Now comes your people on the top, your VPs, your senior vice presidents, your head of the departments. Okay, these people are very strategic. They don't give a damn to too many tactical elements. Okay, too many granular operational elements, because for that the middle management layer is already in their day-to-day operations. For those people, this third cohort, everything is forward-looking. Tell me about the prediction. Give me some prescriptive recommendations. How should be my next week should look like? How is my sales funnel looks like for the coming week? Okay, where the opportunities are going to come from? Okay, how is my supply chain looks like? Can you tell me my forward-looking inventory fill rate risk? Okay, am I going to meet my service levels next week or not? How much safety stock I need to maintain in the coming month so that my inventory, my working capital should not get blocked too much in maintaining that particular safety stock level. What is the right balance between my service levels and the safety stock? Okay, how should I keep my transportation costs under control? Okay, what should be my network design looks like? So everything should focus on the future aspect. Okay, the coming week, the next 6 weeks, the next 14 days or maybe the next 3 weeks, the next 21 days. So tell them something which is more forward-looking rather than what happened in the past. Now, past is only important for these people if there were some key anomalies happened. Okay, I'm going to share with you a very interesting anecdotal story here. A few months ago, I was interacting with the head of supply chain operations with a very large CPG brand. And he mentioned to me that every week he gets close to 35 to 40 different types of dashboards in his mailbox every week. And he sometimes feels very intimidating that which email he should open and which email he should not open. He also has access to those control towers, okay? Those like your command center with a bunch of numbers floating around the screen, all the reds and highs and lows. And the more important thing for him is that I don't know which one demands my attention right now and whether that attention is really significant or not. And am I missing on some opportunity? Because if remember in supply chain, the most important topic is called trade-offs. Okay, that's the most important topic. Okay. If you improve in one area, there is always a negative impact on the other area. Okay, and sometimes you make a positive impact in one area, then it also causes a negative impact on the other area. Okay, the marketing, the logistics, your sales, okay, your manufacturing all have to work in collaboration. That's the reason what we call in supply chain that you should not try to go for optimization at each individual level of cost. Okay, you also need to look at the supply chain cost optimization across the value chain, end to end, because making an optimization at one level may have a negative impact on the other. For example, maybe your production team wants to cut down their unit cost of the product. Okay, so maybe they buy in bulk from the suppliers. Okay, all those components and those raw material. Now what happens is when you buy in bulk, definitely there's economies of scale. You get a lower unit price per product. But remember, you are blocking too much working capital in the inventory. And because of that, you also need now a lot of warehousing space. So that means there is a warehousing rent you need to pay, okay, to keep that kind of an inventory. Now, when you're keeping so much inventory in the warehouse, when you also have blocked too much working capital in the inventory, you have less money available to focus on the other aspect of your value chain. So there's always a balance that you need to be maintained. Now suddenly, let's imagine the fuel cost goes high. Okay, now suddenly your transportation carriers are going to charge you a lot of money. So when the transportation cost goes high significantly, what the companies usually typically do is they try to open too many warehouses. They try to be more smarter in doing their route planning. Okay, so if you open too many warehouses, again, a lot of capital is getting invested in the warehouses, because now you're taking the warehouses closer to the consumers, so that the amount of time that takes to deliver an item, the order lead time, can be controlled. Okay, and that will also cut down the transportation cost. But then you need to see how the growing warehouse cost outweighs or underweighs your transportation cost surge. So in supply chain, everything is around trade-offs. Okay, so now think in this way. If you are building a story for that third cohort, your VPs, your SVPs and heads, you need to keep in mind that how to connect with these people. Because if they are always on move, they're always traveling across different plants, your regional warehouses, your distribution centers, going and meeting the retailers, the wholesalers. So they're interacting with different echelons in your entire value chain. And these people what they want is more curated insights, because they don't have time to log into your BI ecosystem and try to construct their own story or try to derive story from your existing charts. What they want is curated insights, something which is simple English, okay, easy to digest, forward looking, with the proper anomalies and causation, what happened in the last 2 days or in the last 1 week, okay? And along with that, if you can give them some prescriptive recommendations, fantastic. These guys would love it, because ultimately they are the main decision makers. They need to make those tough calls in this entire supply chain ecosystem, if you are in, where every day is a challenge. Okay. So now, if you're dealing with those people, for them, the most preferred consumption medium is like mobile applications. Okay, you can send them alerts and notifications via SMS, via WhatsApp, via email. Okay, create that spark, create that motivation with these particular people. That's very, very important. And if you can maintain a connection with these people very well, you have a pretty long relation in that particular vendor company, because these are the people who are actually going to sign the check for renewals, and also to making sure the current storyline that you put in place reaches a maximum population within the workforce. Okay. Now comes the top layer. Okay, the C-level suite. Again, very strategic, not too much operational and tactical aspect. They want to go deeper into that, because for that their top management and the middle management is already there. What they want is, again, more forward looking. Okay, they want something which has a more connection with your financial KPIs, your margins, your profitability. Of course, your top management also wants that, but for those people, everything revolves around your shareholder value. Okay, as well as revolving around your organic growth percentage. Okay, it also revolves around your share of voice of the consumers. Okay, they also talked about your market reach. Okay, how well we are penetrating in the region, how well we are faring against the competition. And the more important thing is how the different categories and products are performing, and where the opportunities are for further investments, the mergers, the acquisitions. Okay, because these are guys who have to take some really big decisions. And especially if you are a part of CPG and FMCG industry, you know that the last 5 to 6 years are not that good. Okay, lot of players in the CPG FMCG sector have suffered because the retail sales have become quite constant. In fact, year over year, the growth is merely 4.5%. E-commerce is the next big move, and Amazon is the major disruptor right now, and is triggering a lot of investment in the e-commerce channel, both in the CPG FMCG sector, because these two industries are also now embracing the idea that how they can also invest in their own online stores, leverage the best out of the marketplace model, and also trying to partner with the retailers and be more closer to the consumers. So if you can give these people, the C-level executives, something which is a futuristic view, okay, what the market view looks like, okay, where the financial KPIs are going towards, what is the industry benchmarks, what's our baseline, where do we stand right now? So for them, it's everything around revolve around the market and the competition. So think in that way: finance, market, competition. How do you bring those three elements into the story that they consume? And apart from that, again, they are looking for more curated insights. Okay, they don't have time. They have time like few minutes during the day to go through their mobile application or to go to the notifications. Do not try to stuff them with dashboards and scorecards in their mailbox, because that's not going to work. Okay, because they already have too many. And you won't believe some of the large CPG FMCG players I have worked in the past. You will be surprised to know that they have like 1,000, sometimes 1,500 different types of dashboards that are floating across the organization. The maximum I have seen is 1,625 different types of dashboards. That's crazy. Who looks at these many dashboards? And it's sometimes really mind-boggling to see that how people are trying to solve every business problem or solve every possible question with another dashboard. I think that's what we are doing as an organization, and that's what we need to stop. So I always believe in the philosophy of building insights bundles, okay? Respecting each and every medium of consumption, and do not try to overboard on it. Do not try to make your dashboards and scorecards so bloated with every possible insight stuffed into it that no one uses it. And don't make it too simplistic that people don't feel a difference between their incumbent story, their incumbent BI platforms, and the new acquisition platform. So try to maintain a balance. Try to bundle up your dashboards and scorecards with the right alerts, the notifications, bundle them with the mobile applications, with weekly and fortnightly newsletters. Try to create those bundles so that people could easily differentiate it. If I want to see this whole story, I need to look at all these 4 or 5 elements together in. Only then I would be able to see where do I stand. Okay? So these are some of the very important lessons which I've learned in the industry over the last few years. I hope you might find them beneficial. If you feel that there are certain things which I've said were a little bit contradictory or might not resonate with you or connect with you, please go to our channel, post your comment below this particular video. I'm always ready to learn and listen from your experiences, because that's very, very important, because we are a very small industry and we all have a lot of valuable knowledge in our brains, and the best way to learn is to just collaborate. Okay, and in the next episode we're going to be concluding this particular series of dashboards adoption, and in the last episode I'm going to be talking about how to proactively augment your dashboards and scorecards. Instead of waiting for your business user to come back to you and ask for augmentation, how can you gauge and look for those early warning signals that are telling you that adoption is gradually going down, or the people are not finding the current storylines very relevant or actionable? That's an indicator that we need to capitalize on and start doing proactive augmentation. That is the more important key to trigger the adoption rate. Okay, so until then, stay safe, stay connected. Hasta pronto.